Our family was known for our magical holiday displays. They stopped traffic on our one-way street. So when we pulled up one evening after a family outing and saw a juvie-bound adolescent stealing our Christmas lights while his fellow idiots kept watch, my dad put the car in park and darted after them. The irony of the situation is that my dad looks exactly like Santa Claus. He returned 20 minutes later, lights in hand and out of breath. They dropped him when we pulled up. I just wanted to scare him, he said. They live up the street. Do we think we'll never see each other again? Let's eat. We sat down to our Christmas Eve dinner, my brother and I bursting with pride about our father's badassery. But things are different this year. Last year, I spent every night watching sitcoms with my parents and between them in their bed. They were my best friends. But now I'm stuck in a hormonal limbo. I wear a bra and have my period. It's like I woke up one morning with a chip on my shoulder, acne, angst, heartbreak, but I don't know how to identify those emotions yet. And I am way too cool for my parents. Except at night, when I wiggle my way in between my mom and dad after they've fallen asleep. Reeking of Clearasil, crinkling the pages of my sassy magazine, and rattling the batteries in my flashlight, I belly crawl my way to the top. It feels safe in between them. On holidays, my habits make it incredibly difficult for them to sneak out and leave gifts. On Easter Eve, I caught my mom stuffing our baskets in the living room and cried myself to sleep. I knew the truth. My parents were that infamous hare, and most likely the tooth fairy. And then the gut-wrenching reality hit. They were Santa, too. He's not real. It was the only logical conclusion, but part of me still wanted to believe. It's winter of my 6th grade year. We got a Christmas tree, but an unexplainable level of apathy is plaguing our house. No legendary holiday display, no decorations on the tree. My dad is constantly either at work or on the phone trying to get work, and my mom is trying to make sure my brother and I go to school and stay out of trouble. My concern over the lack of festivities is overshadowed by a blonde-haired, flannel-wearing 12-year-old boy in my homeroom. Will you skate with me at Iceplex next Friday? Circle 1, yes, no, maybe. Later, Matt. My suddenly tremor-stricken hands grasped onto the paper. It was my ticket to something that didn't involve me writing sad poetry in my diary. Matt, oh, I desired for his attention since the start of our 6th grade year. But now, just in time for our winter skating field trip, just in time to embrace the purpose of mistletoe, he was asking me out. I took out my pink fuzzy pen and composed purple ink laps around yes on the college-ruled notebook paper, treating it with the importance of a Scantron. As the bell rang, I sauntered over to his desk and pushed the most meaningful piece of paper I'd ever held toward him. Our eyes met, and without any contemplation, I rapidly closed one eyelid and committed a heinous 6th grade social act. I winked. I'd watched way too many episodes of Golden Girls with my parents, and I marveled at the way Blanche Devereaux attracted her suitors. Because most 12-year-old girls take their social cues from a fictional elderly woman. Matt gave me a subtle nod that indicated, "What's up?" And in several days, I'd show him what was up, on the ice and in my heart. The last time I'd gone skating was with my dad, and he had to hold me up the entire time. "Don't tense up. Shift your weight. You can do it," he said. But I'd look down at the ice, panic, and completely eat it. And he'd pick me up every time. "You'll get it the next lap," he'd say. I took out my Wet n Wild compact on the way home. When you realize that someone has finally noticed you, your flaws become amplified. My pores looked like the type of potholes people write to the city about. And my hair, dishwater blonde with feather bangs that screamed, "My mom chooses my haircut." Because she did. Something had to be done. I needed to look like someone else, anyone else. At home, I took out a YM magazine. Drew Barrymore's bleached hair and middle part spoke to me. This was the change I needed. Off with the bangs, in with the bleach, and I had to be stealth about it. My parents wouldn't understand this transformation that needed to happen. I was a woman now, going on dates. Or kind of a date, but whatever. They weren't on my level. That night, while Mom was doing dishes and Dad was working, I snagged the bottle of bleach from the garage and tiptoed with it upstairs. I'd read about it before in YM magazine. I'd seen what it had done to my clothes, so surely it would work on my miserable mop. I stepped into the shower, unscrewed the cap, and set in motion a Clorox shower. Suddenly, all those warnings I saw illustrated on the back of the bottle made sense. My eyes journeyed to the fiery pits of hell as I stood there violently debating which part of my being to extinguish with water first. After several of the longest minutes in my entire existence, I sprang from the shower to the mirror, hoping my pain and suffering would be worth it. But there I stood, blistered scalp, bloodshot eyes, and that same goddamn dishwater blonde hair. So that didn't work. But there was still hope for my bangs. All the girls in my class sported middle parts, and surely the only way to achieve that look would be to cut them off entirely. I stood in front of the mirror with my dog-shaped craft scissors, scalp still stinging from the bleach, taking pride in every snippet. But as a small patch began forming at the front of my head, I realized no teen magazine had any advice on my home haircut catastrophe. I wrapped a towel around my head, laid down on my bed, and fell asleep. For the first time in years, I didn't go into my parents' bed. The next morning, before I was able to locate a hat, I ran into my dad in the hallway. "What happened to your head? Was there a fire we didn't know about last night?" "You okay, kid?" he said. "I was trying something new, Dad. You wouldn't get it. You're old." I stormed upstairs and managed to find a circa 90s Mayim Bialik-inspired sunflower hat to disguise the disgrace atop my head. Although the hat was considered out of style, you know what's never in style? A 12-year-old girl with a receding hairline. I walked into class praying no one would notice. And there was a note waiting for me on my desk. "I'm getting you something for Christmas. You can get me something too also. Meet me at the crosswalk for your gift tomorrow after school. Later, Matt." I'll get you something too also, Matt. I spent the remainder of my school day making 2 lists. One list of the things I could get him, and one list of the things I thought he might get me. And it was decided I'd get Matt a blue Stussy hat. I ran home after school, grabbed my piggy bank, and begged my mom to drive me to the skate shop. "Are you sure you really want to do this? Those hats are expensive. I've never even met this Matt," she said. "I'm positive. Besides, he's getting me something too, Mom." "Okay, if this is what you really want," she said. I shopped for Matt's hat like I was buying a new car. It had to be perfect, something that would last, something stylish and comfortable, and $25 later, we were back home. I pillaged the house for the perfect wrapping paper for Matt's hat, but we were lacking in Hallmark merchandise. "Mom, I need something to wrap Matt's present." "Unfortunately, we just don't have any right now. I'm sorry," she said. "What do you mean? Christmas is in a week and we don't have any wrapping paper? We're not getting any presents?" I figured out the truth about Santa, so don't try to pull that if you believe crap with me. We're not getting any presents, are we? I said. That's not what I'm saying, she said. Screw you. This is so unfair. What kind of a loser mom doesn't have wrapping paper? I stomped upstairs and slammed my bedroom door. What do you want now? Just leave me alone. I swung open the door. My dad's hand reached through and gripped around my jaw. Now you listen, you little brat. Your mother and I have been pretty tolerant of your queenie crap, but we're done. Now we don't have any wrapping paper, so you're gonna have to deal with it. And if you ever talk to your mother like that again, I'll give you a reason to cry. Are we clear? He loosened his grip and slammed the door. I wanted to cry, but the shock stopped me. My dad had never laid a hand on me in my entire life. But just as any selfish 12-year-old would do, my brain went back to Matt. I took a piece of the comic section from our newspaper and wrapped his gift. Down at the crosswalk, I waited for him. An hour passed, and he never showed. Maybe he forgot about our date. I knew where Matt lived. I set forth on my trek to his house, 4 blocks up tortuous hills. My cut-off jean shorts were riding up my thighs, and beneath my sweaty sunflower hat, my blistered scalp was burning. Finally, I arrived and rang the doorbell. I could hear him in there, but no one was answering. Matt didn't forget. I left the gift on his front porch. At least he'd know what he was missing. It was dark by the time I got home. I'd missed dinner. My mom was waiting in the kitchen with a plate of tuna casserole. I'm really sorry about earlier, I said. I know you are, she responded. Dad hates me now. That couldn't be further from the truth, sweetheart. We don't hug much in our family, but I held on to my mom for a good while, and I ate in my room that night. It was quiet around our house for the next few days. We didn't have our annual Christmas Eve dinner. On Christmas morning, we slept in. There wasn't any need to rush down to the undecorated tree. We knew Santa didn't come. Mid-morning, my brother and I wandered downstairs. My mother and father were standing next to the tree holding 2 envelopes. We really wanted to be able to give you guys Christmas this year, but work has been so hard to come by, and we can't afford it. Here. My dad handed my brother and I 1 envelope each. I sold as many of mine and your mother's belongings that I could. It's not a lot of money, but it's something. I'm so sorry I failed you guys this year. Tears rolled down his cheeks. For the first time in my life, I saw my parents as people. People with real problems and feelings. People that wanted nothing more than to make their children happy. We stood around a bare Christmas tree, each of us crying. My dad, because he thought he failed. My mom, because it hurt her to see him hurting. And my brother and I, because we realized Santa had gone a long time ago, and we'd been believing in the wrong person the entire time.
Holland Halser.